Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another DADCAW. It is 9:41 in the evening of Saturday, April 18th, 2020. So, we're fast approaching 420, which isn't significant to me at all, besides being a joke, but I hope people enjoy that day. I imagine there will be a lot of hotboxing going around as a result of the quarantine, so enjoy that if you're so inclined. This is the second DADCAW of the week. We're finally caught up with the presence of this one, and I wanted to talk a little bit about something that is still linked to Hydra multiplayer. It has been the series of, it's really just been the month of Hydra multiplayer, but this one is actually about, I'm seeing a desire for myself and for other people to actually improve at the game as a result of playing all of these multiplayer tests. And I'm also seeing a much more robust amount of balancing happening and asking a lot more engaging and surprising out there questions about the balance and the mechanics and stuff, more so than what I was asking myself when it came to the handling of, player versus AI combat. Hydra was designed to be a cooperative player versus AI experience back when it was still called Co-op 2017 and it was still being developed for remastered. I mean, the clue was in the name at that point. But you also saw a pretty large amount of balance changes happen in the 1.0 version, and that was before, obviously, we moved away from remastered into the 2.0 version, which had even more and a bunch of new units and all sorts of other things that just were not feasible to the same degree or at all in remastered, and that's why we moved to this platform, of course. I think it's really interesting to see the evolution of the design philosophy that goes into and informs the balance changes, and how that has evolved specifically because of playing these experiences, playing these maps, and leveling up as not only a level designer, but a game balancer, because I'm actually seeing player strategies form over time. And I think that's really neat. Like there's a series of changes that we made recently that we would not have made if we had just been doing tests for, AI, right? There's things that players are always going to be using in a more robust manner than the most advanced AI, it seems, for now, until we can get some more things going there, like borrowing in the middle of town center placements. Cough, cough, ultralisks, cough, cough. Oh, you can't say cough, cough anymore, you'll die. But yeah, I mean, there's been a bunch of different things that have happened. And I think it's really interesting to see how the multiplayer experience has informed my own opinion about what needs to change and what needs to stay, and, what is good and what isn't so good and what needs improvement. And so, basic things like taking borrow and making it, okay, well, it shouldn't just be researched by default. Maybe you need an evolution chamber before you can use borrow. And that's what we're testing right now. And it seems to be working okay. It stops people from just immediately sending Zerglings to all the corners of the map and getting not only free vision without any investment, so much as a drone and 75 minerals, but also getting, just a bunch of other crazy stuff, like stopping them from being able to expand at all without detection. And this brought up another question as to whether or not it would make sense for the Protoss to be so late in having mobile detection compared to the other races, with Comsats and Overlords, of course, being the ways that you can detect outside of static defense for the other two races. And that led to me changing the requirements for the Observer to no longer require a dedicated tech structure in the form of the observatory. So I think it's interesting. It's really, really neat to see how that stuff has evolved over time, and over such a short period of time too. We've seen some really significant changes, and we've also realized the vast importance of reads in an area where, maybe you don't understand why your Marines aren't doing damage to 4 castle upgraded battlecruiser that gets more armor when you end up facing the target, right? So, and maybe that's too much, right? Maybe that's too much armor, or maybe it's simply like too much base armor, so that stacked on top of the fact that it has armor upgrades and base armor, it's even more difficult to handle and stuff like that. So there's all sorts of things that can be impacted in that way. And I think that there's been a lot of lessons associated with handling, increasing the upgrade cap and allowing these upgrades and behaviors to exist without proper reads and superbly pristine and precise implementation has underscored the necessity for those things, and it really underscored as well the importance of scouting and importance of certain gameplay mechanics. That's why I was talking about, moving around the map and actually improving as a player as a result of playing these. I've improved as a player in terms of how well I can micromanage and split focus and multitask. I'm still working on the fundamentals for sure, and Starcraft is a game about fundamentals, and I think Hydra adds to that as opposed to detracting from it, obviously in different ways, and certainly there's things that were in the original game that are no longer in the game currently, like EMP Shockwave has been reworked into something else. It's no longer an active ability, so that's something where it does seem that things are being removed, but the core essence of the game is still there. And when it comes to spellcasters, you are still maintaining a tight grip on their energy, and you're rewarded for doing that. You're rewarded for understanding when, what their cast range is and what their energy's at and all that other stuff. So yeah, there's definitely a lot at stake when you're making so many gameplay changes, but I think I've been making only good ones pretty much lately, when they're actually working properly, unlike the Dark Templar speed buff, for example, but making only good changes as a result of actually getting good gameplay experiences and solid feedback from individuals and just getting data, like gathering data from seeing how certain battles have played out. That's one of the benefits of always observing all of these games. And of course, there's some benefits to actually playing them, and especially when it comes to level design and stuff. But this DADCAW is a bit more about the whole idea behind gameplay balance and how the Hydra multiplayer stuff has helped me in that respect. So it's not just about map balance, it's about like the factions and how they're balanced out by virtue of having all these new changes that have happened to all of the races. So there have definitely been some things that are underused and sleeper OP, perhaps, just because of the breadth of content that is available for us to explore when we're playing these. We haven't actually seen all of them. And a lot of the games as well, probably because of the map sizes and probably because of the team compositions and skill disparities in some cases. We've ended games before the late game tech can really come out. There's been a few that were really good, like that were fairly long lately, but we definitely need more data on the late game situation. And of course, it's still evolving because not all of the Hydra game state stuff is finished. And so we're still a ways away from saying that all of the Hydra game state is implemented as I've documented it. And then testing that is going to be its own section. So definitely going to be interesting to see where that evolves to. But I think, playing it in multiplayer and having the privilege to have so many people interested in my content, in some ways it's a privilege and in other ways it's earned, right? It's not just something that was given to me. It's something that I earned by making interesting content, it would seem. And so I really am appreciative of it, even if I have to look at it from a meritocratical standpoint, right? And say like, oh, I actually earned this. There was some merit to my project and that's why people are interested. I am also still very appreciative that people are willing to put in so much time and effort and man hours just playing. And I guess it means in some ways that I've done my job right and that we're still doing a good job collectively to improve this project. It's one of those things that definitely makes the whole thing feel more community sourced and more connected to the experience of being a part of a community. And that's one of the other things that I'm really happy about, is just how consistently I've felt connected to the community as a result of making all of these balance changes and asking people, getting people involved and engaged in balance theory and what might work here as a change. And, just even if the ideas don't work out that people are suggesting or that I'm suggesting, we're at least thinking about it collectively, and perhaps a positive solution will arise from the ether in so far as we'll see something really solid. So time will tell. We're still waiting on a large number of balance changes, particularly the height and mischance changes and other global things that are going to require some pretty significant, not only code, but also changes to gameplay and, play style. Like it's going to impact players as much as it's going to impact iQuare and myself in terms of the workload, and DF in terms of the artistic workload. So yeah, there's a lot on the line. There's a lot more in the pipe, 5x5. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's been great so far. I've really enjoyed it. I think Hydra's very, very strong multiplayer experience right now when you're duking it out with your friends, and certainly some salt, certainly some anger perhaps demonstrated and levied, some piss and vinegar levied at the people who are owning their friends and fellow community members. Certainly some very hilarious moments that are all timestamped by DF. Always look at those Fraud Night VODs and timestamp. Check those timestamps. But I'm just happy that people are interested. I'm glad. I feel gratified that people are interested because of the fact that clearly I'm doing a half-decent job. So that's pretty good. Always a fan of that. And so obviously lately I've been working a bit on my Mapcraft submission, but even that in a way is sort of like a Mapcraft version of the final Zerg map and of the vanilla campaign. And to me, it doesn't seem likely that it'll end up being the final version of that map, but at the very least, we'll have a map that is constructed with the idea that we're going to be playing it on Fraud Night next week. And that means to me, I'm going to try my best to make sure that there's like enough resources and a reasonable amount of area, and there's enough defensibility for all the players. And we're going to see like at least 6 players available, if not, additional players, depending on how much space we actually end up having at the end of it and how much space needs to be filled in. Of course, this is an accelerated development as it is a Mapcraft, but maybe I'll still work on it after the fact just to polish it up and get it ready for play testing and use it as another way to gauge the balance or lack thereof of certain aspects of the Hydra's new game state. So there's always things to learn, and I'm even once again repurposing Mapcraft in a way for that sort of experience. So I'm really looking forward to stuff like that. I'm really looking forward to seeing, just how far we can push this sort of experience and how fun we can really make it. Like right now, it's grown from just a few interested parties to the point where now we're certainly regularly getting to the point where we have a full house for all of these maps, including, the fact that we have like a rotating cast that always ends up totaling up to at least 6 or 7 players, if not the full 8. And then you got people who are, of course, more interested in watching than playing per se, but are also interested in seeing that and coming to the channel for that particular purpose. There's a lot of people who are into that, and I like that. I like the fact that, obviously it's gratifying to me on an individual, selfish level, but I like the fact that, what that says to me is people are enjoying this content, and, I was able to produce something that people are interested in playing and participating in, and giving feedback on and all that stuff. So endlessly grateful for those who dedicate their time and donate their time in that sense. Hopefully you guys are having as much fun as I am, is all I'll say. And I guess one of the other things that I should mention is you really shouldn't worry too much, I don't think, about the idea of potentially walking up and seeing, this mechanic seems so busted. This mechanic seems so out of whack. Just like I can recommend to aspiring game developers or modders or whatever, I can recommend countless different tactics or techniques or thought processes to keep in mind when it comes to handling, actually designing new tech trees. But what I would leave you with is, you need iteration and you need testing, and that's more than unit testing, although unit testing is excellent, and I would always recommend it. It's more than that. It's also actual multiplayer testing, as I found the importance of it. So it's going to impact how you perceive your new mechanics. I mean, you may sort of similar to how if you make a map and it's relying a lot on prior map knowledge, like there's a timing attack that always happens and new players are going to get caught off guard by it. That's prior map knowledge, right? They can scout it, hopefully you didn't pre-place a bunch of shit, but still that's some aspect of prior map knowledge. Once they play a few times, they'll be on the same par as you. So at first, right, you'll be more familiar with your stuff, just like you're more familiar with your map that requires prior map knowledge to excel. You're also going to be more familiar with your own mod and your tech tree changes and the way that your game's systems work and everything else. And so even if you're not the best foundational, mechanical, fundamental player, you're probably going to be ahead of the curve just based on the knowledge gap. And then once that gap closes, you'll actually see how better players that are better than you at your own content, like DF and Connor and Ultralisks and stuff like that. These players can and often do outpace me in game. And this is because they've become familiar with the experience of playing Hydra. And that tells you like what's a player that's better than I am at the game doing that makes a certain mechanic unbalanced or a certain strategy overpowered or overtuned, or even worse in some ways, like what are they trying to do that they can't do because like what kind of skill can they not express based on the fact that I've implemented some sort of mechanic that hinders their ability to express that skill. Like you got to keep an eye on that sort of content as well, and that sort of trouble as well. And I think that that's also a fairly important component of map design and tech tree design, is being able to express your skill, but not being able to do so easily, like actually expressing skill and not just abusing a certain overpowered, piece of equipment or upgrade or unit or whatever. And I'm sure I'll be running down this rabbit hole a lot, especially when I get deep into my FPS development and my own RTS development down the line. But so far with Hydra, I'm really seeing the fruits of repeated testing, and even if people are initially put off by a certain strength of a certain strategy, I do appreciate that a lot of people realize as well that there's also a skill disparity at play, and that there might be some way to offset how powerful a strategy is by responding to it. Similar to requiring prior map knowledge for a certain timing attack, you might require prior experience with a certain player to anticipate what they're going to do. Like DF really loves to build Zerglings, so you might want to watch out for Zerglings. Stuff like that is sort of obvious when you say it out loud, but that can definitely feel like help players feel like maybe it's not a strategy that's broken or part of the game that's lackluster in terms of its balance, but maybe it's just that they need to improve at the game and scout and read their opponent a little bit better and stuff like that in order to pass proper judgment, if you will. And I guess that'll draw my DADCAW to a close. So if you are looking to make your own mod, or you are making your own mod or game or whatever, and you're wondering how am I going to possibly make it balanced, because I want to have some fun playing multiplayer with people and I want to create interest, and a big way to do that is to make sure that people are having fun with this novelty, but also having the ability to really express skill. How can I do that? Well, a lot of iteration, a lot of testing, and hope that people are interested in your content enough to give you that testing time. And that's sometimes it's a crapshoot, but that's why you put effort into your shit, so that you can convince them that way. So yeah, bye.